Tomorrow morning, your alarm is going to ring. You'll drag yourself out of bed, grab a hurried cup of coffee, and sit in traffic to get to a job. You will spend the next 8 hours staring at a screen, and you will do this 5 days a week for most of your life. We accept this reality because we tell ourselves a specific story. We say, well, at least I don't live in the Stone Age. We picture our ancient ancestors in a constant, brutal state of panic, starving, freezing, covered in dirt. We believe that before modern jobs existed, early humans had to work 24 hours a day just to stay alive. But what if everything you just pictured is a lie? In the 1960s, anthropologists decided to actually measure human survival. They traveled to the Kalahari Desert to study the Eskung Bushmen. These were hunter-gatherers living in a harsh, unforgiving environment, completely isolated from modern farming and technology. The researchers expected to find exhausted, miserable people working themselves to the bone just to find their next meal. Instead, they found something that shook modern society to its core. Anthropologist Richard Lee tracked their daily routines down to the minute, and he discovered that the average adult spent only 15 to 20 hours a week doing what we would call work, hunting and gathering food. Let me repeat that. 15 to 20 hours a week. That is a 3-hour workday. By Wednesday lunchtime, an ancient human had already finished their work week. The famous anthropologist Marshall Salins looked at this data and called them the original Affluent Society, not because they had a lot of material possessions, but because their wants were simple and they met them quickly. So this begs a massive question. If they weren't answering emails and they weren't hunting mammoths for 10 hours a day, what exactly did ancient humans do with all that free time? First and foremost, they rested. Modern humans are obsessed with the hustle. We feel guilty if we sit on the couch for an hour. But for 300,000 years, resting was a core human activity. During the hottest parts of the afternoon, the entire camp simply shut down. They lay in the shade. They took long naps. They did absolutely nothing, and they didn't feel bad about it. But when they were awake, they played. In a hunter-gatherer tribe, the line between work and play barely exists. Gathering berries wasn't a miserable, lonely chore. It was a social event. It was done in groups. They gossiped, they joked, and they complained. Back at the camp, they spent hours just talking. They visited friends in neighboring tribes. They played complex social games. They sang together. They also spent a massive amount of time with their children. But not like we do today. A modern parent is exhausted, trying to do everything alone. In ancient times, kids were raised by the entire village. A child in an ancient tribe had dozens of caregivers, aunts and uncles, giving the actual parents time to breathe. And then there was the art. When you have 50 hours of free time a week, you don't just carve a basic stick to kill a deer. You spend an extra 3 hours carving beautiful, intricate patterns into the handle of that spear. Not because it makes the weapon deadlier, but because humans have an ancient, desperate need to create beauty. They painted massive, breathtaking murals deep inside caves. They carved delicate flutes out of bird bones. They played music by the firelight. They were scientists, too. They observed the stars. They memorized the exact medicinal properties of hundreds of plants. They had the mental space to simply be curious. For over 90% of human history, this was the deal. Short work hours, deep social bonds, endless time for creativity. So, what happened? How did we lose it? About 10,000 years ago, we invented agriculture. We thought planting wheat would make life even easier. But historians now call it the greatest trap in human history. We didn't domesticate wheat. Wheat domesticated us. Farming required backbreaking labor. From sunrise to sunset, suddenly, humans were tied to a single piece of dirt. We had to protect the crops. We had to build fences. For the first time ever, some people had more food than others, which meant we needed guards. We needed walls. We needed kings. The 15-hour workweek vanished overnight. It was replaced by a life of endless toil, ruined spines, and rigid social classes. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution. We invented the mechanical clock. Suddenly, time wasn't measured by the sun or by your own body's natural tiredness. It was measured by the factory whistle. Human beings, creatures born to wander, play, and nap, were locked inside loud, dark factories for 14 hours a day. Today we have smartphones, artificial intelligence, and robots. In 1930, the famous economist John Maynard Keynes made a prediction. He said that by the 21st century, technology would be so advanced, we would go back to a 15-hour work week. He thought our biggest problem would be figuring out what to do with our free time, but he was wrong. Instead of working less, we just invented more tasks. We are answering emails at 10 p.m. in bed. We are eating lunch at our desks while staring at spreadsheets. We traded the open savanna for a tiny box with fluorescent lights. We pay for expensive gym memberships just to walk on a treadmill, simulating the movement our ancestors did for free. We download meditation apps to remind us to breathe, something ancient humans did naturally by the fire. We are constantly connected to the entire world through our screens, yet we have never felt more isolated. Our bodies are screaming that something is wrong, and we ignore it with another cup of coffee. You are an ancient biological machine. Your brain was designed for deep social connection. It was built to walk through forests, to create art, and to rest in the shade without a single ounce of guilt. You were not built to sit in a cubicle for 40 hours a week. You were not built for the relentless pressure of the modern economy. So the next time you feel completely burned out, the next time you feel lazy because you just want to sit and stare at the sky, don't be so hard on yourself. Your body isn't failing. You aren't broken. You are just homesick. Homesick for a way of life that your ancestors knew for 300,000 years. A life where your value wasn't measured by your productivity. A life where you were allowed to simply exist, to breathe the air, to watch the stars, and to be human. And nothing more. I truly hope this video helped you take a deep breath and feel just a little bit of that ancient freedom today. If this story resonated with you, please tell me your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt that deep homesickness for a simpler life? Let's talk about it down below. Thank you for watching, and remember to just breathe.